Basically, just what we're going to be talking about today is how to write the argumentative paragraph. Now, are you in a class right now where you're going to be writing an argumentative paragraph?
I think I'm looking for it. I'm in English 10 semester 2.
Yes, so I believe this, I believe that this is in that classroom, if I'm remembering it right. I have 4 classes, so I think that I have it right. But regardless, this is an assignment that's helpful because throughout your time in the classes, they talk a lot about counterclaims and making arguments and using evidence. And so no matter what, this is something that's going to be real valuable to learn. Okay, so now for this assignment, see if this is going to move for me. Okay, a little motivation for us. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I always try to remind myself of that when I feel kind of overwhelmed with the amount of work in front of me. So just something that helps me. Okay, now here is our agenda for our time today. First, we're just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about how we're doing today, what has been the best and or worst part of your week, what is a topic you are passionate about for persuading others. Then our goal is going to be to review the directions for this assignment just to make sure that it is understood better, and especially the counterclaim paragraph, because I've noticed that a lot of students who I've been grading their assignments for this have been having some confusion about the counterclaim. So I thought it would be helpful to go over that. Then we are going to have some final review, questions and comments, and then just a higher level thinking question. And it's how well do you think people seek to understand what people believe who disagree with their viewpoint on any given topic, and then just explain. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end to extend the learning here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start first, and you are welcome to just continue on the microphone if you prefer that, or if you want to type in the chat box. It really is just up to you, whatever you're the most comfortable with. So our first question is, how are you today, and what has been the best and or worst part of your week?
I'm good today. The best part, I don't have a best part of my week. I didn't do much this week.
Just kind of like an average week, would you say?
I didn't do anything this week besides schoolwork.
Yeah. How's your schoolwork been for you this week?
I've been a little distracted this week. Well, really for the past few weeks. I recently just got out the hospital.
Oh, no.
So I've been pretty much on bed rest since I left the hospital. But I haven't. The best part will be, I guess the best part this week is I'm alive.
Yeah, gosh. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you had that time in the hospital and you're on bed rest, but it sounds like you're at least doing better, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm doing better.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that, but I'm sorry that you went through that. That sounds really tough.
It was emotional, but I'm alive, thank God.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would say for me, I think I know I'd shared with you in the chat box one of the worst parts of my week, but I guess in a way it's also like I'm thankful too that I went to the dentist today. They looked at my tooth. They saw that it looks like I'm near needing a root canal. So the worst part is that I'm near needing a root canal, but the best part is that I'm glad that I went to the dentist before they left for the holidays, so that I have kind of a plan if I start to have some major toothache that I'm not going to be stuck, not able to get a hold of somebody. So that
my worst part was me biting my tongue.
Yeah, that really hurts. I told you I did it once, and I did it so hard I cried. I was like in my 20s. It just hurt me so bad. And I was right there in Wendy's.
Oh, that is so. It hurts really bad, especially when you do it so bad. It leaves a mark in your tongue. It's hard for me to even talk or to eat anything. It makes it difficult.
Oh gosh, that does sound painful. Well, feel free. Like I said, I'm happy to have you talk on the mic, but if it's easier for you to do the chat box, do whatever feels best for your talk.
Okay.
Okay, so now since for today's assignment, we are talking about the argumentative paragraph writing, just that idea of persuading others and also understanding the viewpoint of others, then to be able to argue even in a stronger kind of way. I thought it would be helpful just to kind of think about what is a topic that you are passionate about for persuading others. And so it doesn't have to be what we're discussing today, but just kind of like it could be a value or a moral or even a political issue that you have a really strong opinion about.
It would be toxic relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to say anything else about that or leave it at that?
Leave it at that for now.
Yes, but I think I have an idea of what you're talking about and the respect, and I definitely think that that's something that's important to be passionate about. I think for me, the first idea that came to mind probably was bullying. That's something that just, you know, being a teacher and being in education that I really have a strong opinion about, just because, you know, I feel like people should be able to go about their day and not feel like they're going to be harassed by somebody else. So that's one I feel real strongly about. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Now, our goal today, just in regard to the classroom and the academics, is just to review the directions for this assignment together for a better understanding of how to write it, again, especially the counterclaim paragraph. Now, this is something, this whole topic is one that is created by the curriculum here. It's not one that I made up, and it's definitely a really controversial one in the news right now. So hopefully it's something that, you know, kind of thinking about it and discussing it together will be helpful for the assignment, and even just thinking about it, because like I said, this is definitely something that is in the news right now and people have really strong opinions about it. You're welcome to share your opinion if you want to. If we had a whole class full of students, I may not necessarily feel like that was a great idea, because I think people can get pretty heated, which isn't, you know, necessarily a bad thing, but in an online environment, it probably is kind of hard to keep that safe for people. But are you interested in sharing your opinion on this, Lulu, what you think about President Trump's travel ban?
I did it, and I remember this assignment. I did it. It was for English 9, right? Or English
Oh, okay.
10,
So maybe I had it wrong,
one.
what I was saying.
I remember doing it. I understand it, and then at the same time, I wouldn't agree with it. My opinion, as far as I wouldn't agree with it, because majority of the countries that he selected was all Muslim countries.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's pretty much saying, okay, if every Muslim person that you're banning that really is in need of the help, you're saying they can't come here because they're Muslim and they're terrorists, but they need the help. They're getting away from actual Muslims who are actually the terrorists for real, for real. You don't know someone. You can't sit here and say, hey, you're a terrorist because you're Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, if you look at it, if he's really doing if he's doing the Muslim ban, okay, what about Christianity? What about Hinduism? What about Jewish and all these other countries that do have that are violence, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But there are, like, I'm Muslim myself, so
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in America. Like, I've been here since I was 6.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I've seen horrible things. Yes, I've seen it on the news. I've seen it. I've listened to friends and family experience it, and I've seen it with my own eyes. And I can sit here and say, yeah, this person is wrong, and yeah, this person is right. I can't sit here and tell, I don't like you because you're Muslim or you're Christian or you're Jewish, because your whole continent, your whole religion is pretty much a terrorist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of him just like, okay, these 7 countries that he banned, yes, I agree. There's some of them who are terrorists, and there are some that are not terrorists that are in need of the help from, America or whatever foreign country that has that support that will give them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like I hear you saying that you feel like it's really like making too big of a generalization for a big group of people and kind of saying like that this group of people is dangerous and really that's not fair to make that kind of stereotype. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. And then also, oh, you had said something else, the second part of what you said. Now it's slipping my mind. Well, maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah, it definitely sounds like something that you really have thought a lot about and are familiar with for sure. So I think that'll help you for the assignment. But I also think you really explained yourself well when you were talking through that. So thanks for sharing your opinion on that.
I remember this assignment. I did it already.
Yes, yes. It's one that, like I said, I know people have a lot.
It was hard. It was very hard. I'm not gonna say it was an easy peasy assignment. It was. I sat here for days just trying to like, how am I gonna put word it for word, like how I really feel about it.
Yes. And for me, I know it's challenging too if there's something that I'm really passionate about and then being, expected to write a paragraph about what people argue on the other side of the issue. That can be really tough too. So I can easily see why this assignment, is challenging for a lot of people. So hopefully, like I said, I know you said you already did this. I hope this will be helpful review for you, especially because I do think writing a counterclaim in general, so whether it's for this assignment or even on future assignments, because I know there are other ones and other classes where this is done, it does seem to be confusing. And so I'm hoping that kind of fleshing it out and breaking it down can be helpful for you, even on those future assignments too. Okay, so what we'll do is you actually already did a really great job of sharing what some of the main arguments are for people when it comes to arguing about this topic. I'll go ahead and I'm just going to pull up here. This is what the rough draft looked like. So writing the argumentative rough draft, we have the topic sentence, the concrete detail, the commentary, and then the concluding sentence. And then for the counterclaim topic sentence, we have the reason for the counterclaim, and then 2 rebuttals and a concluding sentence. And this is actually where I saw a lot of students struggle, and I don't know if you'll remember when you had done this before, but a lot of students who I've graded just recently on this, when they did this second paragraph, they used the whole paragraph to argue for one side. And so basically, for example, if the first paragraph was, say they did support President Trump's ban, then that whole first paragraph would be about support for it. And then they went ahead and did the second paragraph entirely about arguing against it, which that is partly right, because the counterclaim topic sentence should actually be what the argument is against, whatever somebody said in the first paragraph. But where I think people got confused is when it comes down to the rebuttal down here. What the rebuttal actually means is it's arguing against the counterclaim. So basically, whatever somebody said in this first paragraph, whatever, if they, like I said, were saying, I support his travel ban, the second paragraph with the rebuttals would actually be more support for that. So that might even sound a little bit kind of confusing as I explain it aloud, but I think as we actually go ahead and look at what this would be like if it was written out, I think that'll make it a little bit easier. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll look at this. So basically what I did is I just went ahead and got the research for both sides of this. And so on one side, this was just some reading about support for the travel ban. And since this does ask for concrete details with a citation, then I know that I need to find an outside source that I'm going to be able to cite. So I know I'm doing a lot of talking on here. Would you be interested in reading this aloud, Lulu? And if you don't, that's fine. I can read it.
Sure.
Okay.
In support of a travel ban, by Lyrica Lewin, CNN. The travel ban ordered by President Donald Trump has received furious criticism and legal challenges. But there are many Americans who agree with Trump that temporarily banning refugees as well as immigration from certain countries is necessary to ensure safety in the United States. Here are a few people who spoke with CNN about why they support the administration's sentence. In all the controversy, everyone expressed concerns for those fleeing persecution and war, but empathizes the desire for the United States to protect its borders.
Great. Thank you for reading that. And actually, you probably heard, even when you were reading that part where it says express concern for those fleeing persecution and war. I know that was one of the arguments that you had shared, just that idea that some people actually are trying to get to safety, and that's why they need to be able to come. So that was one right there, too. Okay, so in here, let's go ahead and pull out, I think this will be helpful. What were a couple arguments that people had in support of the travel ban? So when we look back at this, what do you see there?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
No problem. And I don't mean to put you on the spot so much. So if you ever feel like you just need to pass, that's fine. Because usually, like I said, if it's a group of students, which is ideal, we can all kind of share answering questions. So if you ever need a break, that's fine. But my question was, what is an argument in here that is support for the travel ban?
The support would be many Americans who agree with Trump that temporary banning refugees. Many Americans?
Yep, that's, I think, the first part of it. I think the second part is probably the key part. Why do they feel like that is important to do? If you continue reading on it.
Is necessary to ensure safety in the United States?
Yeah, I would say that's it. Just the idea that they feel like it ensures safety. And then continuing on, if we look down at that last paragraph, there's one more similar kind of argument in support of the travel ban. What is that line, would you say, in that last paragraph?
It'll be protect its borders.
Absolutely right. Good. Okay, now we actually get in here one of the arguments, like I said, that you had shared, which is one that is against the travel ban. And that's the line, I already had read that, where it says everyone expressed concern for those fleeing persecution and war. So I think that's one of the arguments we can think about that is evidence for arguing against the travel ban. So does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, now we'll go ahead to this next one. Okay, against the travel ban. And again, this is an article that I got off the BBC website, and I just went ahead and I just pulled out any parts that were evidence for us. And so this is just a really kind of cut down version of the article. So do you want to go ahead and read this one, or do you want me to take a turn?
Your turn.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so this is against the travel ban, Trump's U.S. travel ban. What's the full story? That's the title. Donald Trump has updated the restrictions on his travel ban, which was first introduced in January 2017. The top court in America, the U.S. Supreme Court, has ruled President Donald Trump's travel ban can go into full effect. This decision in November 2017 is a boost for Mr. Trump's policy against travelers from Chad, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, 6 mainly Muslim countries. And then here's a quote: "Making America safe is my #1 priority. We will not admit those into our country we cannot safely vet," Mr. Trump said. Mr. Trump said the plans were about keeping America safe from terrorism and that it was not a ban against Muslims. But many people disagreed because the majority of people living in the 6 of the countries on the list are Muslims. And there's that citation down there. So this is actually the very same argument that you had met earlier. I'm sorry, that you had shared earlier when I asked you your opinion about this.
Mm-hmm.
That line down there at the bottom where many people disagree because the majority of people living in 6 of the countries on the list are Muslims. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So see, you were way ahead of yourself with sharing this. You were right on track with understanding this. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and, this may be a little tricky for me to kind of go back and forth between my PowerPoint slide and the white screen, but I'll just do the best that I can. This is a little different than a system I've used before. I'm going to go ahead and try to do this. Okay, I think I'm actually just going to go ahead and try to continue to do this here on the PowerPoint. That might actually be the easiest. Are you able to still see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that you had said for your topic sentence that you do not support the travel ban, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just kind of type this from that perspective. So I don't support President Trump's executive order banning travel from specific countries into the United States. Okay, so for this, we're supposed to try to come up with 2 facts with citations. Now, I can always look back here. Let me go ahead and do that, probably be the easiest. Okay, so when you look at this one, I know we kind of reviewed this, but feel free to look back again. What was one of the reasons that you felt like people should be able to come here, no matter where they're from, in this article?
Well, it wasn't just people fleeing prosecution and war. It was, well, mainly because of the war. Like for me and my family, when we left Somalia and went to a refugee camp in Kenya, it was because of the war, if I remember correctly, the war that's still going on now in Somalia.
Yeah.
It was because of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this quote, but then I'm also going to try to add in here what you said because I felt like that was really important to add on. Okay, so, one main reason immigrants should be allowed to enter the United States is because of needing to flee a war in their home country. How does that line look to you? And you can change anything if you think that that needs to be changed.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right. And then let me double check. What was that article for us? So, okay.
I'm trying to pull up the one I did so I could use some of it on here.
Absolutely. And also, depending on how you did on that one grade-wise, if there's anything that you want to use from this one, you're absolutely welcome to because we're doing it together. But I guess you're not in that class anymore, so that wouldn't even make sense. But hopefully, I'm hoping that these skills can still be helpful to you on future assignments. In the article. Okay, so One thing I'm going to do here that I know sometimes is new for a lot of students is show you how I set this up to make sure that I've cited it correctly. Okay, so in support of the travel ban, and then by Lyric Lewin, he says, and then I'm going to put that quote in here. Okay, and so again, hopefully this is something that can be helpful to you, but also for anybody that would watch this video later. What I did just to make sure that I have the right citation for this concrete detail is I mentioned the article. So I say in the article in support of the travel ban by Lyric Lewin, he says, and then I have that quote, in all the conversations, everyone expressed concern for those fleeing persecution and war. Now, what I'll put here at the end, even though I did already mention his name, I'll still go ahead and do that, is I put his, I put his name in parentheses after the quote. And that's a way that I can show that I have cited this because I have both the title and then I also have his name after the quote. Okay, does that make sense to you how I did the citation there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now another one was, I believe, okay, in this second one, and again, this was also, this was your argument here. When you look back at this article, I'm sure that you'll remember saying this, but many people disagreed. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll paste this in here and then I'll get the citation correctly. Okay, now I'll say in the article that was called Trump's U.S. travel ban. What's the full story? So in the article, Trump's U.S. travel ban, what's the full story? Okay. It is argued, and I'm actually just going to take out part of this quote because we don't even need it. It'll make it sound weird. Okay. In the article, Trump's U.S. travel ban, what's the full story? It is argued that many people disagreed because the majority of people living in 6 of the countries on the list are Muslims. Okay, and so to cite this, it was the BBC, so I'm just going to go ahead and put bbc.com. We don't have to put that whole website title. Okay, so I know I kind of went through that quickly. I just want to pause for a second to see if when you look at these concrete details, the way that I set it up with the citation information before and after, and the way that I put the quote in there, does that make sense to you? Do you have any questions about that? Because I know sometimes this can be really tricky. It took me a long time to learn how to do all these citations and quoting. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
At first, it was a little tricky. But yeah, looking at it now, it makes sense.
Okay, great. Well, and like I said, if you do have any questions, let me know. I still have times, especially with technology changing nowadays, I have to go and look it up how to cite things because, at different times, like for a long time, all the people had for research was books. And so all you could do was like cite a title of a book. But now when, there's internet articles and there's websites and then there's like journal articles on the internet, it's hard to keep up with it. And so I often have to look it up, like, and type in, Google in, like, how do I cite a journal article on the internet? Because with the, evolving technology, it's hard for me to keep up with how the MLA wants it to be cited. So I just tell you that because if you ever hit something where you're not sure how to cite it, I just encourage you to Google it.
Okay.
Okay, so now this next part here where we do the commentary, the opinion on facts, this is where I think that it's really important to make sure that with these concrete details that we explain what those mean. So when you look at these two concrete details, what would you say are the main points there that go along with your argument? Or in other words, what do those quotes show that help you prove why that travel ban is wrong?
I guess in both cases, I mean, I can't say every country in those travel ban is warring it, but
Oops, I'm sorry, I'm going to enter. It looks like somebody just joined us here. Let me make sure that I see who that is. Okay. So it looks like this is Tawny. Is that right? Hi, Tawny. Can you hear me okay? Feel free to go in the chat box or on the mic or whatever you feel most comfortable with. Okay, great. Yeah, welcome. Well, Tawny, what we are going over is the argumentative paragraphs. And so this was the assignment where somebody had to argue about President Trump's travel ban and take one side on the issue and go ahead and argue about that with evidence in the first paragraph. And then in the second paragraph, state what the counterclaim is and argue against that. So basically what I was doing here with Lulu is we were just going over how to form this together. Now, what I had shared is whether you're actually doing this assignment or not right now in class, the idea of a counterclaim is really important in writing. And so it's something that's applicable to other assignments here at the school, but really just in general. I think it's really a good skill to have. And I think it actually makes a piece of writing or even an argument stronger when somebody can say what opponents of their viewpoint think and then argue against it. So kind of just giving you a quick review on what we're doing here. Do you have any questions before we jump back into this assignment, Tawny? Well, feel free. Yeah, great. And if you do have questions, like I said, you can get on the mic or you can go in the chat box. Either's fine, and we're happy to have you here with us. Okay, so basically what I was asking, and maybe I think it might be helpful if I type these questions out. So what do the, actually that's not how I want to put that. How do the quotes above prove that the travel ban is wrong? They show, okay, so here was my question. Okay, how do the quotes above prove that the travel ban is wrong? And then you might even think about the sentence starter where you say they show and think about what they show. And so Tawny, feel free to jump in. And I know Lula, you were thinking about this and I interrupted you there. So feel free to jump back in too if you want to add in some information. I think one thing that might be helpful, let me go ahead and I'll give you an example for the first one, and then maybe one of you will feel a little more comfortable for the next one. Okay, so I'll say, this shows that people in the world need a safe place to go. And so now, of course, I'm referring to that first concrete detail about fleeing persecution and war. So I'm going to say this shows that people in the world need a safe place to go, and the U.S. should provide that. Okay, so that's what that first quote, that concrete detail shows. What would you say that second one shows? What does it prove? I'll move this so you can see it. So how might you fill that in here? The second quote shows, what does this second quote right here show? The one that says, many people disagreed because the majority of people living in 6 of the countries on the list are Muslims. What does that show? Are we stuck? I can go ahead here, and then hopefully for the next one, I've given you a kind of an example of how to do it. So the second quote shows that this travel ban almost seems like a religious ban, which is unfair to people. How do I want to put the next part? Which is unfair to people, and they shouldn't receive discrimination. Okay, so what I did here in this commentary is I went ahead and I just kind of explained how these quotes prove that President Trump's executive order, or in other words, the travel ban, isn't right. So that's the position that we took for this topic sentence. So I have a concrete detail that proves why it's wrong, another concrete detail that proves why it's wrong, and then a commentary that explains those two quotes and basically says how they prove that it's wrong. Okay, so let me just take a quick pause here. Are you both with me? Do you have any questions so far? Okay, Tanya, I see your question. Are we supposed to say how we feel about it? Yes. And so for this, you're basically just choosing. In the first paragraph, you just decide what your opinion is. And so you're either going to argue for the side that you don't support the travel ban, or you're going to argue for the side that you do support the travel ban. You just want to make sure for whichever side you take that you have the evidence for it below, the commentary, and the concluding sentence. And then in the next paragraph, you are going to be using some arguments for what people say who are on the other side of the issue. But absolutely, for the first paragraph, you want to take the position of what you think. It's your, kind of chance to share your opinion through this piece of writing. Does that answer your question? Lulu had asked me that. I actually was thinking it was English 10 semester 2, but I may have it confused in my head. I have 4 classes that I do, so I know this is one I've been grading recently. So I can't actually remember which class it is. I apologize for that. But the benefit of this is that I know counterclaims and writing argumentative pieces are things that are in a lot of the classes here, and so it'll be helpful to you, even if this isn't your specific assignment. Reviewing the counterclaim, I think, will be helpful. Okay, so yeah, this is probably not necessarily one that specifically will be for your class, but I've noticed in my time teaching here that going over counterclaims is something that can sometimes be confusing to people. So hopefully at least going over that can be helpful to you for any assignments that you have that are similar in your class.
I remember this is English 10 semester 1.
Oh, it's English 10 semester 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And like I also had shared too, Tawny, I think before you were here, in this, I'm making sure to show how you can set up a quote or a piece of evidence to do a citation. I know that's something that sometimes can be hard to get used to, citing evidence within writing. And so that's something that I think could be helpful to anyone as well. Okay, and Lulu, do you have any questions so far?
No.
Okay. All right, so I will go ahead and I'm going to craft our concluding sentence and then we'll go on to this next paragraph together. And so just a reminder, anytime somebody is doing a concluding sentence, you always want to make sure that you think about restating the topic sentence along with reviewing any kind of main ideas from the writing. So you're not really saying anything new in the concluding sentence. It's really just a review of what you have shared before. And sometimes I think it's even helpful to say in conclusion. I think it just makes it clear. And I know when I'm writing, it can remind me to make sure that I do a conclusion. So in conclusion, President Trump's travel ban is not a good decision because it keeps people from safety and
It's discriminating.
is discriminating. Okay, good. Okay, perfect. Great. So you can see there we have that topic sentence and concluding sentence that really are very similar, and it's good, just kind of keeps it full circle. Okay. Okay, any questions before we move on to the counterclaim? Okay, so now just to review, okay, what is a counterclaim? What is a counterclaim?
I forgot.
Oh, well, it's good. We're reviewing it then. I don't even think I knew this term for a long time. When I was in high school, I don't even think that this was the term that was used. I feel like it was a different term, and so this took me a little bit of time to get used to it at another online school that I taught at. It was the first time I had seen it, but it makes sense now that I know what it is. Tawny, do you remember at all what is a counterclaim? Okay, well, that's all right. All right, so a counterclaim is an argument that is made by somebody who was on the other side of the issue, okay? An argument made by somebody who was on the other side of the issue. Okay, so before you got here, Tawny, Lulu and I looked at an article that had, some different positions about why somebody would argue for the travel ban. Okay, so there were a couple points here, and the two that Lula had pointed out was this line where it is necessary to ensure safety in the United States, and also the desire for the United States to protect its borders. Okay, so what we need is some kind of topic sentence that is going to kind of capture those main ideas, because those are going to be what we're talking about in this. So sometimes I think it's helpful. Okay, so actually I'm going to change that. Okay, I'm going to say supporters of President Trump's travel ban argue. Okay, and so what can we say? We just looked at two pieces of evidence for what supporters would say. How can we kind of generalize that? What would you say is kind of the main idea for what they argue? What do they argue that the travel ban is for? What's its importance?
To ensure safety.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so supporters of President Trump argue that it ensures safety. Okay, and so now we'll go ahead and we'll talk about and I don't want this to be bold and confuse anybody. Okay, so the reason for the counterclaim. So what is the reason that people would argue that? Or in other words, what do they feel like that ban is doing that is keeping danger out? What's kind of the thought process there?
It would be...
Oh, okay, Tanya, I saw your note. We're just talking about the counterclaim. And so I don't know if you'd heard me say, the counterclaim is the argument that people have who disagree with what your main viewpoint has been. And so it's what people say who are on the other side of the issue. Okay, so what were you going to say, Lulu? What do people feel like that does that ensures safety?
I think they think foreigners pretty much are the main, I guess keeping foreigners out of America would make it safe.
Okay, so they think that keeping foreign, actually maybe I'll say immigrants out of the U.S. will keep it safe. Okay. All right, thanks, Lulu. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, now a rebuttal with citation. This is going to be tricky because I don't know that I have a perfect source for this. Let's see. Okay. So what we want to think about here is how we would argue. Let me go back to is how we would argue against that specifically. Because now what the rebuttal means, is this is not explaining more about what supporters of the travel ban think. Now we're actually switching back to what the original viewpoint is, and we are going to rebut, or we're going to disagree with the counterclaim, and we're going to argue against it. Okay, so, and let me put this down just to kind of make this clear. Oops. Okay, so here is the question. Okay, so how can we argue that the ban does not keep the U.S. safer? Because again, that's what people said with the counterclaim. And now at this point, we are no longer talking about what people say on that side of the issue. We're instead going back to the original viewpoint, and we're saying, nope, that's not true. That's what people say on the other side of the issue, but they are wrong. And so the question is, how can we argue that the ban does not keep the U.S. safer? So what kind of thoughts do you have for that? And again, whether this is your viewpoint or not, we're just thinking about how to go ahead and kind of fully make sure that we argue for the viewpoint that we have, and going against yeah, absolutely. I see there, Tawny, that you're with me. It's not only people who are from foreign countries causing crime. I can't do it right now. Sorry.
That's what I was just about to say.
Okay, great. So I'll go
I
ahead.
was going to say, okay, you keep foreigners, people from foreign countries, okay, you ban them. What's going to stop it from the next person shooting up a school?
Yes. Okay. All right. So this, and we can even just be real specific to keep it straight in our mind. So this counterclaim is not a solid argument because it is not just people from other countries who commit crimes. I'm not sure if that's the best way to write that. Do you think that's fine, or should I change the wording there?
I think it's fine.
Okay, yeah. Okay. It's not just people from other countries. It is, and I saw, Tawny, what you put there. So it is people of all races and backgrounds. Okay. All right. How does that look? So I saw, Tawny, with what you put, I wanted to add in there.
That looks good to me.
Okay. All right. Now, what we really need here is a citation. So really, it would be ideal to have a piece of evidence from like another source, just like above where we said, you know, in the article, and then we have the citation after in parentheses. But since I don't have that available for us right now, we're just going to go through and create it ourselves. But again, whenever you see something that says a citation, you want to find that evidence from another source. Okay, let's go ahead, and now we're going to do another rebuttal. So I'll just go ahead and say another reason this counterclaim is not strong is because, okay, so let's think what else. What else can we argue about why that travel ban would not make America safer?
I don't have anything.
I think I might have an idea, but I want to let Tawny have a chance to see if she has one. Okay. Oh, you said you didn't see an article. This part doesn't actually have an article. We had looked at an article for the top part. For down here at the bottom, we're just kind of trying to think of ideas together. So do you have any ideas for that second rebuttal? Okay, so you said it seems like segregation, and actually, you know, I think that we can work with that and talk about how that is just going to cause more problems. So another reason this counterclaim is not strong is because the travel ban seems like segregation, which will cause more danger in our country. Okay. All right, I think that works as a good viewpoint, that idea of saying that it seems more like segregation, which we know is an evil thing that will just cause more trouble and more danger. And so there's no way that's making things safer. Okay, thanks, Tawny. Okay, does anybody have an idea of a good concluding sentence for this, a way that we can wrap it up where we review the main thesis statement and any kind of main ideas? We don't have to restate all of them, but just like the key points. And like I know I showed you before, I always like to kind of say, in conclusion. Okay, and so I got us started there, but I would like to see if either of you want to go ahead and finish that. You've been doing a great job so far. So in conclusion, some may argue that Trump's ban
will keep America safe, but it won't. It will just cause more problems.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Thank you both. You did a great job on this. And I hope what really is helpful about this is just that idea of not being afraid to like follow the outline very closely, because I think this can be a confusing assignment to do when you're thinking about what do people say who disagree with me, and then when do I share their evidence versus when do I argue against them. And I think that's helpful to remember, the counterclaim is what people say who disagree with your main viewpoint. But then when you go to the rebuttal, you are no longer saying what their viewpoint is. Now you're at the point where you're trying to prove them wrong. And so, being careful to just follow the outline, exactly what it's asking for, I think can help to kind of prevent any confusion. I know that that's helpful for me anytime I've had to write something like this, because it is a challenge to go back and forth between different thinking and different arguments, but following it point by point can keep you on track. Okay, so what we didn't hear, of course, is we just went over, the key parts of the paragraph, the topic sentence, concrete details, commentary, and concluding sentence. Remembering with the citation to make sure that, if before we share the title that we can mention the author in it, or we can cite the author after in parentheses with a period. When I did a website article, I don't know if I said this, but there was no author. So what I did after the quote marks was I just put down here bbc.com. There actually was a whole long website name, but you don't have to put that down. The last time I checked, you just put down the main part of the name. Then for the commentary, I went through and I reviewed what the quotes said above and also explained how they prove my topic sentence. And then in the concluding sentence, just restating the topic sentence along with main ideas. Then just the review that counterclaim is what people say who disagree with your main viewpoint, the reason for their counterclaim, so why they seem to believe that. Then the rebuttal is going on and arguing against our counterclaim. So that's your chance to say, this is what people say who disagree with me, but here's why they're wrong. Then again, in the concluding sentence, restating what's up in that topic sentence, as well as a few of the main ideas from that paragraph. Okay, any questions? Any questions on this? Oh, and I saw your question there, Tawny. You know what, Tawny? I would have to double check. I know my roster kind of changes as students are moving from class to class, so I'm not sure currently, but if you want to hang out here in a second, I can double check. Like I said, I wish I knew just off the top of my head, but it does change, just as students move from kind of class to class. Okay, so here's our review. So I just went over the review there. I wanted to see if you have any questions or comments about this. And then just here's my last question to extend our thinking and apply this, to thinking about the present and the real world. How well do you think people seek to understand what people believe who disagree with their viewpoint on any given topic? And then just explain, why do you think that is? And after you answer that question, if you feel like you have good understanding of what we did today, feel free just to kind of log out, but also feel free to hang around if you still did have a question.